junior at Columbia College, majoring in economics, originally from Raleigh, North Carolina. Follow along! First up today is the Undergraduate Research Symposium. I'm a Laidlaw scholar, so I'm helping run the program today. We have over 100 participants sharing their research, so I can't wait to show you some of their great posts.
I'm Ali. I'm from Mexico City. I'm a sophomore and I'm a Laidlaw scholar. This summer I did research in indigenous communities in Mexico City, Mexico, which is where I'm from. And next summer I'll be traveling back to Mexico to do field research on this. So,
This summer, I looked at infant socioeconomic status and its impact on surgical outcomes in infants born with a birth defect known as single ventricle heart disease. We found that even after adjusting for known risk factors such as prematurity, low birth weight, and other non-cardiac anomalies, that patients in the lowest socioeconomic status group had worse outcomes across all studied outcomes, from in-hospital and post-discharge mortality or transplant, as well as longer post-operative ICU stays.
I just got back to my room from the symposium and a lunch and thought I would elaborate a little bit more on the symposium and the program that allowed me to take part in it, which is called Laidlaw Undergraduate Research and Leadership Scholars Program. I'll keep talking about it in the next video. The Laidlaw Undergraduate Research and Leadership Scholars Program, or Laidlaw as we like to call it, is a 2-year program I applied during the winter break of my first year here at Columbia. It sponsors 2 summers. The first one is more traditional research. I worked with a professor named Hitendra Wadhwa at Columbia Business School, and we worked on developing his personal leadership and success program, which is an MBA class there, into a fellowship for undergraduates. I actually still work with him today through his outside leadership consultancy and nonprofit called the Mentora Foundation, and we run a youth fellowship, so it's been incredible to take part in that all the way from Laidlaw until now. And then during my second summer with Laidlaw, I participated in service. The idea is that you take all of the leadership and research skills that you've built up during your first year and put them into action. I'll talk a little bit more about that second summer on the next video. For my second summer with Laidlaw, I traveled to Damongo, Ghana, and worked with World Vision, which is a large international charity. Specifically, I was working on a water, sanitation, and hygiene team. I did some work in menstrual hygiene management, which was very rewarding. And the lunch I was at today was with other scholars who had also done leadership in action projects. 2 of them had also been to Ghana, but were working in different towns on slightly different projects in child advocacy and a few other fields. And then the other scholar had gone to Fiji and done some health work there at a clinic. It was very nice to see everybody's posters today at the Undergraduate Research Symposium. I know I highlighted a couple, but there were posters from across all of the different disciplines, from Laidlaw scholars and other undergraduate fellowships and people who had just conducted research on their own in the university. I'm very, very grateful for Laidlaw and all the opportunities that it's given me, not just from the past 2 summers, but also throughout the year. We've participated in leadership development. Just this past weekend, I went to a conference in London to meet some other Laidlaw scholars and continue building our impact. So it's been an incredible opportunity for which I'm very grateful. I found out about Laidlaw through the Undergraduate Research and Fellowships Office here at Columbia, which I'd encourage anybody interested in applying to look up. They help us find both fellowships for after graduation as well as during your 4 years here in all the different disciplines. So they're an incredible resource and very friendly people, always happy to help you find your next step. Thanks for this question. So housing is mandatory for first-year students. They will live in one of our 5 first-year residence halls, which are John Jay Hall, Carmen Hall, Bernald Hall, Wallach Hall, and Hartley Hall. You do have a decent chance of getting a single if you apply to and are accepted to Columbia and choose to enroll. Then you will enter our housing process for first years. you'll just fill out a survey in which you rank your preferences, so the hall and the type of room. If you do choose to live in a double, you can either choose to get a randomly assigned roommate, or you might meet someone on a Facebook group, for example, and go in with a mutual request. I think a lot of first-year students really like their residence halls. You tend to get your first choice or maybe your second, if not, and people definitely bond in first-year housing. The lounges are always full of people doing work and socializing and cooking, so it's a great way to make friends your first year. Thanks for this one too. I really like living in New York. I don't feel overwhelmed here. I think we have a really nice sort of college town vibe here at Columbia in Morningside Heights, and so you can sort of escape into the neighborhood and onto our beautiful campus if you want to. But then I also like the stimulation of New York City and exploring all around town. I will go ahead and post some of my favorite things in the city on the next slide, but I think you can really pick sort of which scale and size of things you want depending on the day. This is a great question. I think what really sets Columbia students apart from others is just their uniqueness. Everybody has very diverse interests, and they can be very niche, and they're super passionate about what they're interested in. I think that was particularly evident today at the Research Symposium. If you ask someone what their main passion is, they could just go on for ages talking about it, but I think what's also really special about Columbia is how open everybody is to hearing about everybody else's passions as well. And frequently in class, particularly in some of our really small, intimate core curriculum classes, somebody might say something they're interested in, and if you're curious to hear a little bit more about it, you can always go out to lunch after class together and talk more, and people are very open to that sort of sharing opportunity of their passions. Great question. I think my favorite tradition is the tree lighting ceremony, which happens in early December every year. I'll share a photo in a second, but essentially the trees which line College Walk, our main thoroughfare on campus, are strung up with lights all through the beginning of December, and then one night everybody comes out after a class to hang out on the quad, and the a cappella groups perform. There's hot chocolate, everybody finds their friends, and then we count down and all the lights turn on, and it's just a beautiful way to start the exam season, actually. And then the trees stay lit up all through the winter, and it's a really pretty view on your way home from class at the end of the day. Another great fun question. I think my favorite memory here at Columbia is New Student Orientation Program, or NSOP as we like to call it. My New Student Orientation Program last fall was a lot of fun and a great way to get to know the city a little bit better and my classmates better. I explored some areas I probably wouldn't have gone to on my own, Astoria, Queens, and Williamsburg, Brooklyn, particularly Smorgasburg. That was super fun. And there are a lot of activities on campus as well, so you can meet your classmates and find shared passions, and it's just a great way to kick off the year. This past year, I was an orientation leader for the incoming class, and it was wonderful to show my students around New York City and to show them all the resources we have here at Columbia. This is a really good question for incoming students, and I think it really depends on the person, but it's certainly possible to find a sort of work or school life balance here at Columbia. I know I have. I like to do my work during the week, and then some weeknights and on the weekends I like to go out and see shows or to explore different neighborhoods, find good places to eat in the city, and I have a number of friends who like to do the same. I think one great way that we can do that here at Columbia is that we generally don't have classes on Fridays. There are some exceptions for lab or language classes. I'm currently in a larger lecture class during the week that has a discussion section on Friday mornings, but you can easily make it all 4 years without having a single Friday class, and that allows you to get an internship or volunteer in the city, but also just to get ahead on your work so that you have a little bit of downtime over the weekend. I love this question. My answer is probably a little biased. I'm currently living in Shapiro Hall, which I really like. It is for sophomores, juniors, and seniors. My sophomore year, I lived in Carlton Arms, which is a suite style residence hall. And I had a roommate, and then we were randomly placed with 5 other suite mates whom we grew quite close to, and it really became a place to call home over the course of the year. Our suite had lots of fun outings. We watched TV together at night. We would do work together or cook. And so I really enjoyed that housing experience, and I think it was something very special that I'll remember the rest of my time here at Columbia and beyond, and also just emblematic of the Columbia housing experience. This is a good question. Yes, here at Columbia, about 95% of upper class students will stay in housing all 4 years, so you have a really nice sense of community throughout your time here. As you progress through your years at Columbia, you can have a little bit more flexibility as far as the style of dorm in which you live. You could live in a hall-style single all 4 years. You might live in a suite, which I mentioned earlier, or an apartment style by junior or senior year, so there's a lot of flexibility. Some of my favorite core classes have been Contemporary Civilization, because I became very close with some of my classmates. We would always go for dinner right after class, so it was nice to sit around in John Jay, one of our main dining halls here on campus, and talk about what we just learned in class. And our professor also organized some great excursions. We had a picnic in Central Park. We went to the Met Cloisters and out to lunch, so it was a really good class experience. And then I think perhaps content-wise, my favorite class has been Art Humanities, because I never had really formally studied art before, and getting to look at it in a critical way and getting to go to the Met and see on display the works that we were talking about in class and write papers about them was a really nice experience, and I think something you can only have here in New York. This is a good question. I think I kind of touched on it earlier, but I think the culture here is very intellectual, and just very engaged in a lot of different ways, whether that's culturally going out and seeing the city, professionally engaged. I have a lot of friends who have really cool internships, a couple who work at NBC this semester, which is really neat, or socially engaged, always going out and supporting their friends at their theater performances or dance performances or music performances on campus, and then of course intellectually engaged in the classroom. And I think it's just special how many unique interests every person has here. I think what unites us is just how different we are from one another and how much we love learning from one another.